Hi, I'm Bob, the Mortgage Coach Mitchell, and today we're going to be talking about wealth and using real estate and mortgages to build wealth. Okay. You might have, if you've watched any of my videos before, you might have heard me quote a statistic that says that equity in real estate is the number one form of wealth in the country, that it far surpasses any other asset class, be it stocks or bonds or equity in vehicles or any other way, any other place that you can stash your money. The reality of the situation is that in the United States, equity in real estate is the number one form of wealth in the entire country. Now, the problem with that comes up is that the lower you are on the socioeconomic ladder, okay, the less likely you are to own real estate. So if you look at the upper echelons of the socioeconomic ladder, the people that are in the top 10 or 15, 20%, almost all of those people own their houses. Okay, if you're in the lower 10%, almost none of those people own their houses. Well, that's one of the explanations for the wealth and income inequality in the country, is that poor people tend to invest their money in bad decisions. Okay, for example, cars. So anyway, before I get into that, let me go ahead and just kind of explain how I got here. I've been quoting that statistic, about the number one source of wealth and everything, but I couldn't remember where I got it at. So I went ahead and I Googled it again today, and I came across a really interesting article that was published by the United States Census Department. It was based upon the 2010 census, and the report was actually issued in 2017. So all these numbers I'm going to give you are in 2017 dollars. Now, just so that you know, that actually makes my argument more conservative, because over the course of the pandemic, equity in real estate took a bump of like 65%. So if you owned a house at the beginning of the pandemic, your net worth probably went up as much as 65%, because your real estate went up. But anyway, so just so you know, these numbers are actually pretty conservative, and they're based upon census data, so they're probably pretty reliable. While some people fudge and don't necessarily give accurate answers, most people can treat it upright, and it's over a large enough sample to where the numbers do kind of tend to average out. But anyway, according to that report, in 2017, the lower 10% of the wealth owners in the country, so the lowest 10% is in terms of wealth in the United States, had an average net worth of a negative $5,724. In reality, it means that they were belly up, that they owed more than what they were worth. If they were to kick off, somebody they'd have to borrow money to get buried. Okay, so anyway, if that lower 10% is in a negative position, when you get to the 25th percentile, okay, that number does increase to a whopping total of $5,608. So think about that in terms of, if you go to a sporting event and there are 50,000 people in the stadium, that means about 12,500 of them, so about a quarter of the people in that stadium, are going to have a net worth of less than $5,608. That's kind of sad if you think about it. Now, when you get up to 50th percentile, that net worth figure jumps to $104,000. Now, what's the big difference there? Why is there such a big jump over that 25th percentile? Well, people, the higher up in the socioeconomic ladder you go, the more likely you are to own real estate. So that's one of the reasons why that net worth jumps in. So further down in the article, they break it down into how many people own what kind of assets and what's the net worth effect at that. Now, the number one asset class that almost everybody participates in is assets at a financial institution. 93.7% of us have an account somewhere. Okay, that might be a savings account, might be a checking account, might be a IRA or 401k or something, but basically a deposit account at a financial institution. 93.7% of us have one of those. And the median value, so as many people as above and as many people below, the value of the money in the financial institutions is $5,803. So not a whopping, not an overwhelming amount. Vehicles. The next one, as far as percentage of the population that's participating in the asset class, 83.1% of us own vehicles, and our average equity position in those vehicles is $6,717. Now, the one thing I want to pause on vehicles is that, generally speaking, vehicles are a depreciating asset. So if you go out and you buy a really expensive car, let's say that you go out and you spend $60,000 on a car, okay, when you drive that car off the lot, you're probably going to lose 10%, 10 to 15%. Now, with the pandemic and everything, the used car market got weird, not a kilter and such. But over time, generally speaking, and those markets will eventually recoup and rebound and get back to normal. But over time, when you drive that vehicle off the lot, you're going to lose 10% of the value on it right then. Over the depreciation curve on a vehicle is pretty steep for the first 8 years. After 8 years, it starts to level out. When you get down to the vehicle being about 20 years, it's pretty much bottoms out. And as long as it still runs, it's going to be worth, maybe not a whole bunch, but it won't get worth a whole bunch less. But anyway, buying an expensive vehicle is not your best investment. Matter of fact, you're going to lose money on it almost every single time. All right. The next one, the next highest class is 61.8% of us have equity in our own home. Okay, and that amount is $118,000. Okay, so as you can see, equity in real estate jumps right in real estate jumps up. Now that's in your own home. If you look at equity in investment property, only 7.7% of us own investment property, but those 7.7% of us have an average equity position of $120,000. So if you compare that to stocks and bonds, which is $40,000, IRAs, 401ks, which is $65,000, you can see that equity in real estate, that I was indeed correct, that equity in real estate is the number one source of wealth in the country. Now, the big advantage to you guys is that for an average Joe, if you're in the upper echelons, you can participate in all these things. If you're in the top 10%, you probably got money to invest and you got money to put in your 401ks, you got money to buy stocks and bonds and that sort of jazz. But if you're in that lower 50% of the economic situation, or lower 60% of the wealth curve in the country, then you're going to be in a position to where buying a house can make a substantial difference in not only your economic situation, but the economic situation of your children and your children's children. This is the one opportunity that you have to build an asset that you can then leave that to your children, and that will give them a step up to where they can be better off, that where they can build equity in real estate and improve the economic situation for your grandkids and for their kids on and so forth and so on. Don't you wish your great grandfather had thought of this? Anyway, so getting into it, one of the reasons why real estate is such a powerful tool is because the average Joe can participate. We can use the power of what's called leveraging to control an asset that otherwise you and I wouldn't have opportunity to control. You can go out and buy a house. Let's just use round numbers and say you went out and bought a house that was a $300,000 house. Okay, and you put 5% down. Now we can get you into the house less than that. In some situations, especially if like you're a veteran, VA doesn't require a down payment at all. You can negotiate the closing cost and the prepaids into the contract. It is indeed possible to buy a house with little or no money out of your pocket at closing. You still have to have what I refer to as wiggle room to fund like your appraisal, your credit report, your earnest money, your due diligence, that sort of thing. Okay, but it is theoretically possible that when you get to closing, that not only will you get all that money that you put into the deal back, you'll get the keys to the house. Yay, what's not to love? So let's just look at it, but let's be conservative. Let's just go ahead and use a $300,000 house, and you put 5% into it. So that's $15,000 that you're going to put down into it. Now, again, that's not chump change. Okay, a lot of people don't have $15,000. We already talked about if you're, you more likely you have less than $5,800 in the bank. Okay, so to come up with $15,000. It's not a walk in the park, but it can be done. Okay, and if you're interested in finding out how, please feel free to reach out to me in the comments or give me a call, reach out to me through the website. Now, I'm only licensed in North Carolina, so as far as doing a mortgage for you, if you're in North Carolina, by all means, give me a call. I'd love to do your deal. But that's not the purpose of this channel. The purpose of this channel is to help as many people as I can possibly help, and it goes out all around the world and all throughout all 50 states. So if you're here in the United States and you're in Indiana or Ohio or somewhere, definitely feel free to reach out to me. I might not personally be able to do your deal, but I can refer you to somebody. I can also shoot you in the right direction. But again, getting back to the leveraging thing, as long as you meet a certain set of criteria, mortgages and buying a piece of residential real estate is going to be one of the easiest things that you can do to control an asset of that size. Okay, as long as your credit's halfway decent, it does not have to be perfect. If in terms of a credit score, as long as you're above a 620, chances are we can put you into a house. Now, the higher your credit score, the cheaper things are going to be, the better, the easier it's going to be. Okay, but let's say that you don't have a 620 credit score. Time heals all wounds, and now might be the time to start it. The sooner you start fixing that situation, the better off you're going to be. If you're walking out of the bankruptcy court steps and you just filed a Chapter 7 complete liquidation, okay, in 4 years, I can put you back into a house on Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac. Okay, on a non-qualifying mortgage, okay, you know, you might have to put a little bit more into the deal, but on a non-qualifying mortgage, I can get you into it probably less than 2 years. So anyway, and that's a worst case scenario. If you're in Chapter 13, if you made all your payments on the Chapter 13, we might not have to wait at all. Matter of fact, you could still be in the Chapter 13, and as long as we can get the trustees' permission for you to enter into the contract, we can still put you into a house. So anyway, the nice thing about mortgages is that it's a well-established market. It's got a set of guidelines that are published that as long as you adhere to those guidelines, we should be able to put you into the house. So halfway decent credit, your income has to be what we consider to be effective. That is, it can be used to qualify you to come up with your debt to income ratios. Okay, that means it has to have a history of being received, and it has to be likely to continue. Okay, generally speaking, we like to see you on your job for 2 years. Doesn't have to necessarily be the exact same job, but as long as you're in the same line of work or profession and you're moving up, you're getting you're getting a raise for moving to a new job. You don't even have to have been on your job for the full 2 years. But generally speaking, we like to see a history of it being received for 2 years and likely to continue for 3. Okay, and then the last one is you have to have enough money to be able to get into the deal. Again, as we were talking about a few minutes ago, it doesn't have to be a tremendous amount of money. You can get it in the form of a gift. You can even borrow in certain circumstances. But savings is a good way of doing it. Having a relative gifted to you, that's always a nice way of doing it. But again, we're not talking about huge amounts of money. If you got that $5,803 that's sitting in your asset accounts now, how quickly, if you tighten things down and were real conservative on the money that you spent, instead of going to baseball games and football games, you stayed at home and barbecued on the porch and listened to the game on the radio or watched it on TV. If you do that a few dozen times, chances are over the next 3 or 4 years, you could build a lump sum of money to where you could have the assets to work. So as long as you have the ability, the willingness, and we have the security that if you don't make your payments, we can put you into a mortgage. So that's one of the reasons why you should consider buying real estate to increase your wealth and multi-generational wealth. Okay, if you have any questions about it, please feel free to reach out to me in the comments. You can also send me an email through the website, and the website has a telephone number for me, so I do answer my telephone. So please feel free to reach out to me. Even if it's just a theoretical discussion for this point, reach out to me. I'll be happy to shoot you in the right direction, to tell you, the good, the bad, and the ugly of what your situation is, what you need to do to be able to put yourself into a position to buy a house. So I am Bob, the Mortgage Coach Mitchell. Now, let's just do what we've been talking about. Let's put you into a house. Thanks a lot.